Welcome to this step-by-step watercolour tutorial of an owl. Here is the gorgeous reference photograph, and a link for this can be found in the description below. Just click show more just below this video, or the little down arrow if you can't see show more. Here are all my materials. Again, you can find this in the description below with colour alternatives. I'm using a masking pen, or it's drawing gum, to actually mask out the light areas on the owl so that I can paint over the top of them and save all the light and white areas. So you can put that where you like. If you don't have any masking fluid, you could use white paint at the end. I'm wetting the surface of the paper all over the owl with my large size 14 brush, and then I'm just drizzling in some Quinacridone gold, but if you don't have it you could use yellow ochre or raw sienna, and I'm doing this with my size 6 brush, wet into wet. I'm now dropping in some Quinacridone rust, wet into wet with my size 6 brush. If you don't have this colour, you could use burnt sienna, and I'm just putting it here and there, looking at the reference photograph to see this lovely warm colour on the owl. What I'm doing now is I'm just putting the markings just under his beak, just to really sort of give a little bit more detail, and I've mixed up a little bit of Paynes grey watered down with a touch of violet, and painting this around the beak with my size 6 brush. I'm going to continue on using these colours in this first stage of this watercolour to describe the sort of feathers that are on the owl. If you'd like to watch longer, more informative tutorials with lots more voiceover and a drawing template, why not think about joining my Patreon channel membership? A link for that will be found in the top right hand corner. Once you finish painting that sort of first layer, you can start to put the first layer in the eyes. Remember, I've already masked out some of the light areas in the eye, so I'm using a little bit of turquoise, a bit of the Quinacridone rust, and the Paynes grey. I'm painting this wet on dry, but I'm dropping the other colours in wet in wet. I'm just going to paint the beak now, and I'm using azo yellow, but you could use cadmium yellow or even lemon yellow, and I'm adding a little bit of the quinacridone gold just at the bottom of the beak, and it's sort of wet into wet. I've allowed the painting to dry, and I'm taking off some of the masking fluid with my framing tape. I'm leaving some of the other highlights on there, and I'm just working around the eyes now with my size 6 brush with the quinacridone rust and the Paynes grey, just to give a little bit of detail to the eyes. And now I'm using this size 6 brush with the Paynes grey, with the rust colour, and just putting some markings on the feather of the owl. It's so much fun to paint this little owl. I mean, the reference photograph is so cute, and you can just play around with this quite a nice harmonious colour palette. And I'm just sort of working wet into wet and dropping water in and just having lots and lots of fun, just trying to develop his face and building up, working light to dark, traditional way in watercolour. So I'm painting the background now, and I'm using some of the turquoise and the azo yellow, so you can just use a blue and a yellow to make this lovely green. I wet the background first, and I'm using my large size 14 brush and just applying this lovely background wash colour. Once you've got that sort of lighter mid green on, you can start putting in some darker greens. I'm still using this large size 14 brush, and I've added Paynes grey to the yellow, so you get a beautiful dark green. And now I'm actually using my plastic card to sort of scratch out and make some markings in the background. I've decided to put a little bit more dark green because it's sort of faded off a bit, so I'm just applying this damp into wet just around the owl, just to really make him pop out. And I've used the Paynes grey with the yellow still, and I'm just putting these marks in to look like foliage behind the owl as well. And I've sprinkled some salt on, I've allowed it to dry, and you can see that lovely texture I've got in the background there. I'm working on the eyes again. I'm just really kind of building up that sort of light and dark. So I've taken off that next layer of masking fluid and I'm just sort of glazing thin washes over that light area, but also adding more darks to really make those eyes look like glass, which is what really inspired me when I looked at this photograph. You can see he's really coming to life now, and what I'm doing now is I'm just using my size 6 brush, using a lot of Paynes grey and the Quinacridone rust, and just putting those markings on the feathers, really looking at that photograph and putting down those marks. Remember, try to keep as much of that light as possible because it's so easy to lose light in watercolour. So for those of you who didn't have any masking fluid, or if you did and you just fancy it, I'm using white gouache, Winsor & Newton white gouache, and I'm just using my small size 2 brush and just putting some little white highlights here and there. I'm not going to put it in the eye, I don't need to, but just around the edges of the owl and just putting these little white feathers in. It's actually quite nice to do, and it just finishes them off nicely. I'm going to finish this off with a little bit of a spatter. I was resisting it, but I thought, why not? So I'm just giving it a final little spatter just to finish off. This is the last thing I'm going to do. I've thoroughly enjoyed painting this. And here is the finished article. I am delighted with this. I really hope I've inspired you to have a go. And remember, for those of you that would like to see longer videos, lots more voiceovers, lots more tips and techniques, and a drawing template, why not think about joining my Patreon channel membership? Again, details about that are in the top right hand corner, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thanks again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.